right now you're getting people who wish to create on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, wherever,
Yeah.
while simultaneously being a user of that. You can be your own market research. You
Right.
can be your own feedback by
Yeah.
understanding what you say, your small, close group of friends as well,
Yeah.
by understanding what you do and reflecting and thinking, why do I like this? Why do people listen to what, this particular person has to say on this
Yeah.
subject? Why does this work? And it's free market research.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Sporting Level Podcast. And today I'm here with Matt. And Matt, first of all, thanks for taking the time. How are you?
No, it's absolutely fine. No worries at all. I'm good. It's been a very busy week. Some exciting news in the footballing world. But yeah, I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I'm doing well. I'm a lot better now that you're here, joining our podcast. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun. And, it's always going to be a lot of, interesting hearing a little about your journey, all the cool stuff that you're working with at One Football. But I mean, like, we almost have like this, what can I say, like a core question that we have to ask, and then just talk a little bit about you, I guess, how your journey in the sport industry began. And because you have a little bit different path and you ended up, I guess, in a sense, working with content at One Football. So take us a little bit through like how it all started for you.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of something I never really planned. I was far more interested in the on the field side of football, definitely. I was always just playing football, and as I kind of got a bit older, and every kid's dream, not every kid, but most kids' dreams sort of fade out, and you don't quite make it onto the football pitch for a job. I was just really into coaching, and I had some coaching, some opportunities to get some coaching badges. Ended up working out in America. And it was just sort of putting all the knowledge that I'd accumulated over the years and taking it in a different direction. So aside from playing to coaching, and from there I managed to get my UEFA B license with the Welsh FA.
Wow.
Which was a whole new kind of world that I hadn't quite expected to find myself in, but also learning about. And it was really fascinating. I think that kind of bridged the gap between playing football and just having on-field experience to really everything that goes on from a coach's perspective, but also different areas of technical abilities that you're teaching and looking out for in a footballer, but also the mentality that gets taken off the pitch as well, and the organization. And there were so many different facets of rather just sort of turning up and playing football, which really sort of shocked me in coaching, and that bridge my gap into a little bit more, a little bit of a wider understanding. I just sort of stayed in the footballing circle, and wasn't really into the content at all. It was a little bit odd. I joined One Football. I was actually part of the marketing department. And it just, I knew I was going to be working in football in some way. And it was all about, I guess, for me, staying within a footballing circle and staying within something that I felt confident and comfortable to work within and talk about. And some opportunities opened up to get involved in the video team at One Football. And that was about 4 and a bit years ago, almost 5 years ago. And I took it from there. And
And you're still there. So it was a good choice.
Yeah, and I'm still here. Yeah, it was a great choice.
No, but I mean, like, I think it's a very, important point that you bring up, though, because I mean, like, I think a lot of people have like this, of course, like, if you're going to take it all back to like, that dream of one day, playing for a professional team, that slowly fades away. But I also like want to speed it up a little bit in terms of like your professional approach, because obviously, a lot of people like have like this, okay, I want to work in sport, I want to work, in football, but I don't necessarily know like how or what or when. And so it's kind of like a way where you need to have like your mindset open if you want to be in the industry, because you never know exactly, especially when you're young, it's kind of like, well, what can I do? Is it only coaching? Like, is it only, almost like physical education. And people will always think that kind of like in the beginning, right? And once you get a little bit deeper into it, you sort of like exploring all the facets that are, in the industry. And I guess like, talking a little about like, I guess the content side and sort of like your journey into like, and I guess like finding your passion for content in sports, like how did sort of like that realization or opening, happen for you?
Well, it's really interesting you mentioned that, because that sort of happened on the job. I remember
Right.
even studying sports coaching at university, like
Yeah.
I did. There were two sports courses at the university I went to: sports coaching or sports science.
Right.
The whole idea of media or content creation or TV was something so separate.
Yeah.
It wasn't really, as big as it is today, especially with
Right.
social media. So I think that the path of me enjoying sport, and specifically football,
Yeah.
and I'd say enjoying content, but being, an average user and what's the word I'm looking for? Someone who regularly gets involved and engages with content. They
Right.
kind of cross paths on the job.
Yeah.
As I moved into this area.
Right. And I mean, like I think it's a really valid point in terms of just that you always need to like go in with an open mindset and just trying okay, well, is this something for me? And I say this a lot too for like the young students here and the people that are listening that are like okay, I want to go into the industry, and like you have to try things out, like figure out what you like and what you don't like, and it's just part of the journey. Because yes, a lot of people might have like, oh, I want to do like marketing, or I want to do sales, or I want to do like this, but there's so many pathways that kind of like also correlates, and you have to wear a lot of multiple hats, which I'm sure you also learned in one football.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Especially with my family and friends, they know what I do, and they'd say, I couldn't think of a better job for you, Matt. Since you're a kid, talking about football, love football. But it wasn't that way. It was kind of through a side door with the marketing at One Football. It was all about occupying the space in the industry.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be completely straightforward. I'm going to do this, and then I'll reach my goal. Everything isn't completely linear. And I think, especially working here at One Football, is what's so amazing. There's a lot of people who discover different passions and different ideas along the way. There's plenty of people here at One Football who have switched departments, who have moved over, who have found something that interests them a little bit more specifically within the football and the sporting world. And I would say that there isn't, if you're a little bit afraid, anyone listening, of slight deviation and think, you know what, that's not me. That's not what I want to do specifically in sport. You have to start with a bit of a wider funnel.
Yeah.
And you can pick up tools along the way. And I've picked up things from marketing, which would now help me when I think about how does my content going to go out towards an audience.
Right.
I'm technically still marketing. I'm just marketing my own content or the company's content to an audience. So picking up things along the way, even if they're not directly related to what you really want to do, the final aim, is so key. I mean, even now with a content production, I'm using a lot of software, the Premiere Pro and Adobe Audition and Photoshop, After Effects, all of this stuff. I never ever would have thought I'd know how to use it.
Right.
No way. I would have been scared to touch the computer. It would have broken. But it's a byproduct of what I do.
Exactly.
And now I can add it to my skill set.
That's awesome. And I mean, like, I think it's sort of like the best way to look at it. Like, you just have like that open funnel, to it, and then I think it's also, you're touching upon a very important point, not only about having like that open funnel, but like occupying the space, right? Because the sport industry is extremely attractive. It's a lot of people that want to work in the industry, and there's so many people that are fighting for the same kind of jobs. And so like yes, it's important to have your dreams and having your maybe your future goals, but if you don't get your foot in, it's going to be extremely challenging reaching that goal. So you got to go in with an open mindset, and also maybe like have that, in a sense where, yes, in your sense too, you're like, okay, I want to do coaching, but then you ended up, content wise, which is completely other side of the spectrum, right? And so you find like your other passion or your other love, through that. And I wanted to just speed up a little bit to, what you're doing now. Obviously, you're the video presenter at One Football. And first of all, like, what kind of job is that exactly? And what are some of your, key responsibilities and tasks? So people get a like better idea of like, okay, what are you doing?
Well, that's a very good question. It's quite multifaceted. I guess it would be, my overall job would be selecting content from the footballing world,
Right.
selecting stories, news, updates, sort of what's going on, and packaging it effectively across the different platforms that we have, especially the One Football app.
Right.
And I think that is where my day takes me normally, whether it's using content for the app, YouTube, right, TikTok, Instagram, whatever, Snapchat, anything that's happening. It's all about providing stories that are both relevant and both that people could be really, really interested in, and how to package them, how to tell the stories that we want to tell, and sort of be, for me, it's all about the understanding of these stories and how I'm going to put it across and tell people, what they want to know, or maybe what they didn't know, or something that's really engaging in the footballing space.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that would basically be my main sort of roles. And of course, there's the hosting and the presenting as well. That's me on camera after I've written everything and researched it.
Yeah.
But it's really sort of looking at stories and taking new angles, and finding out where you can find the most value in the footballing world and what's going on, and delivering it to people.
So let's talk a little about those stories though, in a sense, because I mean, like, it's so fast paced, content is, things are happening so fast in the football industry. And just talk a little about, like, I guess, like, some key lessons that you learned along the way of just, collecting the right kind of stories and making sure, okay, what do we actually push out? Because there's a lot of information there.
But I think, the key lesson definitely is the value of the information.
Right.
Absolutely. It has to provide something valuable. There's a story, right? There's a headline, and the headline normally kind of draws you in. It's got a nugget of valuable information, and it's after that, it's getting people into the story. It's providing things of value that they understand, that they can take away, and sometimes learn from it, sometimes just be informed and kept up to date. And I think that the value of information is so massive, because, like you said, there's so much out there.
Right.
You can in stuff that's clickbaity and fake news and stuff like this, you could be completely overwhelmed. And I would never, I am myself. I would never hold it against someone for believing some fake news or seeing something being like, I don't understand, there's too much info, I don't get it. It's really the key lesson is definitely the value behind the information that you're giving.
Right. No, I think it's a really valid point, because I mean, like, we're all just swamped with like content, it's everywhere. And I mean, like, we talk about it too, but in terms of our partners that we work with, and I mean, like, it's just like the attention, it's for just looking at this content is so low, and it's like, it's so much going on. So like, you need to fight, for it. And also, like, how do you, I guess, in a sense, and then you probably learned a lot on that in the last 4 years in terms of like what kind of content works and what doesn't. And I guess, like, talk a little about, I guess, because I think it's important to talk a little about the lessons you learned along the way, especially like the last 4 years, but not necessarily just about the content, but about the user expectations, because I think that's something that has changed a lot during the last few years.
Yeah, I think it has. And again, like I mentioned before, when selecting and providing stories to different platforms, these users can be vastly different of what you're expecting, whether depending on your demographic, whether you enjoy shorter, quicker, more fun content, or you want something a bit longer to read or longer to watch. I think the one of the main thing I've taken from a user expectation is the feeling of being involved. A lot of people don't always want to feel like they've been just told, just, this is the news, or this is my opinion, or here's what's happening and there's nothing you can do about it. People want to feel involved in the conversation. I think that's where you've seen the rise of certainly, you know, as much as there can be a lot of negativity in social media comment sections. That's why things like Twitter are so engaging for so many people, because they want to be heard.
Yeah.
You know, the user wants to be heard. They want to be understood. They want to feel like their opinion and the time that they're spending investing themselves and following the sport and following their favorite team, their favorite player, is actually heard. And that's where, born out of that, I think places like Twitch have become so massive, because you can be part of the conversation.
Yeah.
You know, you're not watching a video that someone's sort of talking at you. You can be involved like we're doing right now. You can have a discussion, you can have a conversation. And I think the user expectation is that they want to feel part of this world as well.
Yeah.
And not so sort of talked down to or talked at, basically, by someone, you know, like me creating the content, or whoever else is presenting out there.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, it's obviously a shift of, you know, expectations, and in the terms also the involvement that people want to be, you know, part of something. And I think like that's why also, you know, community has always been like has grown like tremendously. And I mean, like, you see it everywhere now. Like it's like you're building a community. I mean, like, can't deny the fact that we too are doing that at Sporting Global. You know, it's about the community, and like, okay, how do we help our users, right, in the community that we're part of. And that's just, you know, because I think it also has to go with, you know, and I mean, like, you're the content expert here. I'm just, you know, someone someone down the road. But you know, I'm just thinking, like, you know, from a community standpoint too, it's just that, you know, the opportunities that you have to choose from, right? There's so many options, you know, and people are becoming so selective in terms of where they're spending their time, and with what, because, you know, it's like what creates value for me. It goes back to what you were saying, like valuable stories, valuable content. Talk a little about, like, I guess in a sense, how that has sort of, like, I guess perhaps narrowed or changed, you know, some of the directions you've been going in terms of like different kind of channels, different kind of, you know, topics and stories.
As in how the information or the user expectation has driven?
Right. No, information
change.
in terms of like, it gives in a sense in correlation with the user expectations.
Yeah. Well, I guess again, it varies platform to platform, but there's different areas of the sport that are now, especially in football, becoming so detailed within themselves.
Yeah.
You know, I think social media definitely has given a rise to the transfer market. You know, the transfer window is almost bigger than football itself. It's sometimes, crazy. You know, you've got your main guys on Twitter who, when they tweet something, it's official. You know, it is their word. Their word is the absolute truth.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you're distilling information, you know, down to the average Twitter user who would like to be kept up to date with what's going on. Right. Or in the app, for example, in a OneFootball app, they need to know what's going on. And you're sort of pushing the information that is on a need to know basis. And it changes with what you'd expect when you sit down and go on YouTube, for example, and you want to see something more in depth, or you know the latest news and you want to hear someone's opinion, or you want to see a tactical explanation of how so-and-so won the game, or how this team is going to develop with these new players.
Right.
And yeah, that's where the expectation and I guess the information have to really combine, so that you're hitting the right spot and people know when they come to you on such and such a platform that this is what they want and you're going to be providing it.
And I think, like, you know, since we're in this space, and I'm rearranging here a little bit of, you know, our pathway, but I'm thinking, like, you know, because we talk a lot about content, we talk a lot about the different channels, and obviously, you know, content and technology is, you know, changing, you know, so fast. You know, it's like always something new coming in, you know, both positive and negative in many ways. But I'm thinking, like, you know, if you wanted to, like, you know, talk a bit about, you know, the trends that you're seeing, you know, some of the expectation of the new generation, you know, and what I guess the future, you know, sport professionals, the people that are going into the industry here, and like, want to work with content in football, in sports, like what are some of the trends that they should keep an eye on?
I'd say that the biggest trend is a switch to handheld content. I think on your mobile phone, moving away again, even from when I was, studying university and had no idea about this. If you were to ask me, I would have thought, oh, if I was to be in a sports media industry with content, it would be stood in a live studio or creating long documentaries or there with, a big heavy camera filming someone telling them what to do. And the changes are coming through apps that you wouldn't necessarily expect. That TikTok's a massive one as well.
Right.
That is, if I think about football news, think about the OneFootball app, for example, or you go to Twitter and get your news. You wouldn't necessarily think TikTok, but there's a whole community on there sharing football insights, sharing football stories, sharing football opinions. Right. And definitely the handheld information and the handheld even content creation is something that's going to be absolutely massive. Right. More in the case because it gives you a presence, going back to what we spoke about before, about engaging with the community and conversations. That kind of content is how you get yourself heard. It's how you stand out. It's how you engage with people on such a quick basis. And I think this is one of the things that we found as well, is that it's about the speed in such a quickly changing industry. Things happen like that. News breaks. Goals are scored, matches happen, right? Every 2 or 3 days. There is such a constantly changing landscape in football that the handheld content goes hand in hand with that. And, the platforms are putting a lot of effort into stuff like stories, the length of their videos, how accessible they are, how easy it is to share all of the content that's out there. So I think definitely moving forward, with the stuff that mobile phones can do these days, and presumably only going to get better as well, better cameras, better microphones, better software. That's definitely where the next generation of content is going to be.
You essentially just don't need a camera anymore at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'm amazed at what my camera can do, and I know I definitely don't use it to its full abilities on my phone.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I think it's interesting too. I mean, like, there's become like a big shift in terms of like, I guess the accessibility and requirements for creating content. I mean, like, you have like the whole, vlogs and, Twitch and, TikTok and like, Reels and like all this stuff, just moving in a very, fast-paced manner. And I guess like, if you want to, because you talked about like, okay, these are some of the ways that you stand out or can stand out, but I wanted to like, narrow it a little bit down because obviously, I think a lot of people, especially now, probably like, a little bit different from when you joined in a sense the content team, but it's always been a very, people seen how fast, marketing and digital marketing has been evolving, especially in sports. And there's a lot of people that are very like, okay, I want to do marketing. I want to do social media. I want to be like this. And everyone had kind of like, I guess in a sense like that. Yeah, I know how to use a platform. I know how to, I'm on TikTok, I'm on, Facebook. But if you wanted to provide like some specific tips on like for these students, looking for a career, inside sports content and working with this kind of stuff, like how do you stand out, in today's market when the competition and the attention span is, so high?
I guess the standing out would be, and it might sound a little cliche, but in finding your own niche. Yeah. Finding what makes you stand out that little bit more from someone else. There's a wide variety of sporting content. You can go to the higher end, the more popular end, let's say, of the clubs and the teams and the styles of content that are more talked about, that do get more eyes on them, but you're also in a far more saturated market. Right. And on the other side, if you go super, super niche, there might not be a big enough market for it. But I think they're striking a balance between hitting the topics and using the information and finding the stories that people want, but really finding your own way in it. I think, for example, me having a coaching license isn't necessarily the biggest thing, but on occasion, it can lead to me having a bit of a better tactical understanding when it comes to certain videos, or more knowledge on a certain topic, which helps me stand out. Right. There's also the fact that we're based in Berlin, in Germany, OneFootball. And that's and I know plenty of English news, English sports creators out here, and that's just a little bit of a different angle. It's not the be all and end all. There are plenty of English people living in Germany. It's
Right.
just another little sort of level of understanding
Yeah.
of to sort of separate you from the rest. And just, I'd say my one top tip is to find what interests you the most and find a path that you can consistently develop on, because it's far more authentic.
Yeah.
And jumping on the media hype and trying to fake content, and maybe sometimes fake outrage because you're mad that your team has lost. We've seen that a million times on YouTube. Everyone loves shouting at the camera. Finding your own sort of niche way to get your stories across in a way that is authentically you, because that comes across if there's something you're passionate about, if there's something that you really enjoy talking about or following. The authenticity is higher, and people believe you more and believe your information more.
Right. No, I mean, like, I think it's like great advice, and I think it's goes back a little bit to how can I say, just the understanding, right? And I think you touch upon it too, in terms of like, okay, well, if X, Y, and Z, on Twitter or whomever, like, by sharing something, okay, it's legit, right? Or like, you can kind of like trust
exactly.
them. And I think it goes back to that. It's just essentially that, like, okay, there's let's talk about, like, okay, there's tons of streamers and content creators in different kind of topics in sports or football or whatever, but why are you choosing? And I think maybe that's a good question too to ask, like, and let them think about. It's like, why are you watching the person that you're watching for a certain type of content?
No, I think this is a really good angle to take, because right now you're getting people who wish to create on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, wherever.
Yeah.
While simultaneously being a user of that, you can be your own market research. You can be your own feedback by understanding what you say, your small, close group of friends as well, by understanding what you do and reflecting and thinking, why do I like this? Why do people listen to what this particular person has to say on this subject? Why does this work? And it's free market research that companies pay a lot for market research across the board in many different industries. So it really helps where you can look back, and there are plenty of tools online when people are starting out to gain feedback from like-minded people, obviously, like such as yourselves are doing, and find yourselves in small circles. You can talk to people, you can engage with people from around the world, and really find out what others enjoy and how you can create your own little niche for it.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing. And if you wanted to, like, I guess, wrap up a little bit here with like some key action points, I guess, for those that are now like, okay, I'm excited to begin my content journey, try to be a little bit more specific in the niche industry. Like, what are some key steps they should take moving forward?
Start. That is the number one thing. I think the action point is an action point. Go out there, try things. No one's there's not big pressure on you. No one's expecting anything at the start. Learn from it. Go out there, film some content, or write a blog, or start doing this, and really try and understand where you're at and where you see yourself growing into, so that then it comes further down the line, and you start talking to companies, or you start applying for jobs. You have your own voice, you have your own understanding of what you can bring, rather than constantly trying to change it. Because if you don't have a start and you've applied for 5 or 6 different jobs, they're all gonna want different things from you. Whereas on the flip side, if you can bring something to the table, it's what you can bring to those 5 or 6 jobs as well, in your own specific way, whatever that may be.
For sure. No, it makes a lot of sense. And I think it's a perfect way to wrap up the podcast, and Matt, I would like to thank you, of course, so much for taking the time for sharing your, insights with us. Means a lot. And we have like this, I can't let you go like quite yet, because we do have like this sporting level tradition that we always do on our podcast. And I mean, like since you are in Germany, and I guess like since you're a little bit open to learning new languages, I have to teach you a little bit Norwegian. You know, it's like a thing we do.
Okay.
So it's part of the game. You know, I never tell people because I want their authentic reaction. It always works.
I'm gonna embarrass myself.
No, you're gonna be good. So it's not the worst word to learn. You know, it's a pretty good one. And so with every video and stuff that we do, we always finish with "Vi snakkes," which means "see you later" in Norwegian. So that's what you have to say.
Okay. Can I hear it one more time?
Yes. Vi snakkes.
Vi snakkes.
There you go. Great job. Perfect. You see, you're practicing Norwegian. All right. Thank you so much, Matt, and have a good day.
No, thank you. You too.